What you got there?
Oh, are we rolling?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is by Poe Bronson and Ashley Merriman, and it's called Top Dog. You guys can see that there, probably. Mm-hmm. It is, so they call it the science of winning and losing. And obviously you guys can see I'm not super far in. I'm just maybe a quarter of the way through. But it's really good, and so far they're talking about how competition is a good thing and how it actually stimulates people to work harder. And something really interesting, the biggest takeaway that I've had from it so far is that what they found out, and they had a whole bunch of controls and whatnot in this particular study. Like the experiment that they did was they had 20 people jump out of an airplane first time they had ever done it. And what they did is they had them chew on a piece of sponge before and after, so they could measure the chemicals and like how much stress they're being put through before the jump. And so what they and then they did the same thing with 20 ballroom dancers who were in a competition. And so what they found out was that these people in a competition being judged by judges actually were just as stressed out as the people jumping from an airplane 50,000 feet off the ground. But what was most interesting about it was that after the jump, the first initial jump, the stress reduced significantly by the third jump, and the body had actually adapted to it. They were no longer, at least the chemicals being excreted were no longer that of the first jump. So with the ballroom dancers, it turned out that when there's judging and competition involved, the stress hormones, the chemicals, actually never went down. Even if you had 20 years of experience doing a competition, that stress was always there, and it was just as high as jumping out of an airplane. And so then what they deduced was that about 50% of people actually rise to the situation, and they do better under competition, and then about 25% of people, competition really didn't affect them one way or the other, and then the other 25% actually just crumbled. They negatively reacted to competition. So it's a very interesting book, totally up your guys' alley here, my fellow educators. If you've always had questions on why do some people do better in other competitions, why some kids do better in certain groups versus others, it is so good.
Nice.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Yes Phonics channel. I'm your host, Cheyenne Adamson, and this is where homeschoolers, teachers, and educators everywhere, they come for valuable teaching information and insights. So let's get right to it. So one of the simplest things you can do to make your child smarter is to get them off the couch. And today's subject is the damaging effects of digital media. That's what we're going to talk about today, and what you can do to maybe curb this downside, which I think will be relevant and informative and hopefully helpful. Studies show that children who put down the video games and the cell phones and they get some exercise, they actually test higher in school. They solve problems more effectively, and they're less prone to depression and anxiety. And this seems pretty straightforward. The more exercise you get, like we talked about in our last video about getting exercise and being outdoors, and the less time you're spending on screens is probably a good thing. But again, moderation is key. I get that you guys, especially all my teacher subscribers, you guys really don't have any control over this per se. And for all my homeschoolers out there, you guys have total control of this. And to a certain degree, I think teachers in public, private, and charter schools, you can get your kids up and moving around. You can be a little more unconventional than most teachers and get them out of the desks and get them stimulated a little bit. You guys have a little bit of leeway here, but my homeschooler peeps, all you guys have a lot of control over this. But it's not super easy getting kids off the couch or out of the desks all the time. And this trend is dumbing down our students, simply put. And the Nielsen Company revealed that kids spend almost 28 hours per week watching television, and that doesn't count time spent on video games, cell phones, or computers, which bumps that number up to an astonishing 55 hours per week. So, yeah, as you guys can see, it's kind of a time suck. So the question is, do your children flop onto the couch after school and stay there until dinner time? No, they're not just turning off their own brains. They may actually be doing themselves some harm as well. And children who view as little as 3 hours of television per week could be at risk of behavioral problems. Now, that's as little as 3 hours of television per week. And these behavioral problems also include depression, increased aggression, and according to a report published by the Journal of American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. Now, the impact on children of all the drama and violence on television and in video games is tremendously disturbing. And study after study show that children naturally imitate what they see and what they hear, and when exposed to media aggression, they become desensitized to violence, fearful and more aggressive themselves. Now, adding to the problem, violent characters in television and video games are often glamorized and portrayed as role models, and they don't always suffer proper consequences for their violent behavior. Now, to be fair, I want to talk about the flip side, because it's always good to talk about the devil's avocado every once in a while. There is some theories out there that surmise that violent video games actually help reduce crime among older individuals 18 plus, because they're able to actually act out their, I hate to use the word fantasies, and that they're actually acting out fantasies, because we'd never know, we'd have to poll so many people, but they have a theory that, or I guess a hypothesis, that violent video games are actually curbing crime because people can do this stuff in video games versus actually going out and doing it. Now, that's not anything that's substantiated, it's just a hypothesis, nothing proven, but it is interesting, and I do like to bring it up because I don't like to bury anything in fine print, you guys, and I'd love to hear your guys' comments in the description below, because this is a pretty interesting, controversial, and fascinating topic. Now, since the 1950s, more than 1,000 studies have been done on the effects of violence in television and in movies. Now, the majority of these studies conclude that children who watch, and this is children, who watch significant amounts of television and movie violence are more likely to become aggressive and exhibit aggressive behavior, attitudes, and values. And this is from a Senate committee on the judiciary in 1999. So a little older, but still, it's a pretty significant study. And when young children are exposed to something frightening in the media, it can be traumatic for them. Now, telling young children what they see is not real may not help console them, as young children are not able to distinguish between reality and fantasy. There's even been some arguments that your fight or flight system is engaged in even when you're imagining a scenario or a situation. Even as an adult, your stress levels rise. If you're imagining something stressful, you may not even be going through it, but your body biologically is going through these symptoms. Overall, kids just don't have the cognitive abilities yet to digest all this violence, and I think it would help us as a society to kind of get kids on something a little more productive. Now, with that being said, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry reports that American children watch an average of 4 hours of television daily, and that television can be a powerful influence in developing value systems and shaping behavior. And so obviously, you guys, we don't want to use the television as a guide or a mentor or a parent. So again, we need to try to curb the intake of television for young children. Now, all psych journal reports that research has also shown heavy television viewers watching 4 or more per hours of TV per day put in less effort at school, have poorer reading skills, play less friendly with friends, and they have fewer hobbies and activities, and they're more prone to be overweight. Now, interestingly, building children's language and reading skills can help them cope with what they view and put it in its proper perspective. And a well-developed language system gives the brain a well-developed mental function, says Dave Grossman and Gloria De Gaetano in their report, Stop Teaching Our Kids to Kill. Now, when a child is able to verbalize and think on higher levels, the easier it will be to teach children about the consequences of violence. A rich vocabulary enables a higher level of articulation of feelings and opinions and ideas about media violence that a less literate child can't fully express. So experts encourage parents to limit the amount of time their children have access to television and video games. Setting rules and boundaries also helps, such as requiring children to finish their homework and chores before watching television or playing video games. And when did we get to the point in our culture where there needs to be a television in every room? I don't know, maybe I sound like a little bit of a Luddite, but it seems a little bit like overkill. At the very least, take the TV out of your child's bedroom. Children are society's most vulnerable and precious population. They are the most underrepresented population as well. And every minute they spend in front of the television, the computer, or video console is an opportunity missed to be doing healthy things, such as playing outdoors, exercising, reading, engaging with their family, and their friends. So ultimately, you guys, it takes a village to raise a child. Moderation is key in everything, and I think we've said everything that we could say in this particular video. With that in mind, hopefully these are some helpful and insightful tips and or ideas that you guys can incorporate into your everyday lives. And hopefully it kind of gives a different perspective to what may be going on in your child's or your student's life as well, and some of the problems that they may be struggling with. So as always, my fellow educators, I hope you're well. I hope you stay classy, and I'll talk to you in the next video.
Good.